to hear actually the man or the team member that actually is building the network that matches the need for speed when it comes to IoT. Charles PAUMELLE is joining us on stage. And Charles, you're the marketing chair for the LoRa Alliance.
Okay, good.
It's working. For once.
Good afternoon. So I'm delighted to be here talking about my favorite topic, the Internet of Things, and I think you're going to see a lot of parallels between the presentations, which is always interesting when you haven't done that ahead of time. A little bit of my background. I've been about 20 years in business transformation through technology. I'm currently the co-founder of a IoT data management company, and also the co-chair for the marketing for the LoRa Alliance, which is one of the fastest growing IoT standard of communications. My last startup we sold to Accenture about 7 years ago, nearly to the date. So we understand big transformation for large enterprise. And what I'm going to try to do today is give you a little bit of a glimpse into how I think IoT is going to change your life both at home and at work over the next 5 to 7 years. So the first thing I want to say, and I think that was clear earlier, is that IoT is not new. It's been around for 10, 15 years. We have been putting sensors in things for quite a long time. What is new, and the reason that you are suddenly hearing a lot more about it, is that it's becoming affordable. It's becoming easy to do as we go. And obviously the term Internet of Things comes from the fact that we are suddenly connecting all sorts of things which historically did not have a way to tell us how they were operating. So if you think about the Internet, the first wave of Internet was all about connecting computers. The second wave was the emergence of smartphones and the capacity to exchange information between us humans at a much faster pace. And the third one is really about machines generating information, hence the term. And when we say machine, it means basically anything that's in your environment, anything that is in your workplace, your assets, your health. They're all going to be sharing information about how they're doing, how they're operating. So let's start with my 5 prediction. Prediction number 1, and that's probably an easy one, everything will be connected for nearly free. Now, everything is basically your imagination. It's going to be your dog, your cat, your car, your house, your workplace, whether it's a warehouse or a factory or an office. It's going to be your assets, whatever they might be. It's going to be your health, the health of your grandma. All of these are going to be available as information that we can then utilize through the big data we've just talked about. So whatever your industry, and whether you're in a consumer or a B2B space, you're going to see the possibilities to start measuring, to start detecting events, to start remotely control, and to track anything all of the time. And one of the big reasons for that is, as this is illustrated, it's become a lot easier to go from an idea to a prototype to a working model. Here's one example of the many development boards that are available today. You can pick this up for a few euros, and it has an open source base. It's based on Arduino, which is a very common standard for electronics. It has a radio connectivity, which means that you can straight away start sending data. And once you've connected whatever sensors you want to use to measure, you can then start collecting that data and start fitting your big data elements. Once that's proven, you can then move to a more industrial development. As I said earlier, IoT is not new. The costs are plummeting, and there's really 3 reasons for that. The first one is low power. Suddenly, I can have a device that will emit transmit information for years and years on a single battery. We're talking 10, 15 years of life. Long range, because we have now technologies that allow us to get that information across in a very, very long, we're talking many kilometers at a very low cost. And the final piece is the low-cost radios. I can put one of these radios on any device for a few euros, coming down very quickly to below €1. I talked about long range. Something like this, which pretty much looks, operates, and costs about the same as the Wi-Fi router you might be using at home or at work. If I were to plug it here, in this room here in Montpellier, I would expect to get a range all the way to probably Montpellier Airport, several kilometers away. How comes that? We obviously are not connecting a smartphone that's consuming streaming video. We're connecting a sensor that maybe sends us a temperature or tells us if a door is open or closed. So it's very small amounts of data, which actually give us a chance to utilize the connectivity in a much more efficient way. Prediction number 2, everything will be traceable at all times. If you think about the way that we plan journeys 10 years ago and now, when's the last time you've decided that you want to go from Montpellier to Paris, and to figure out how you're going to get there, you're going to start pulling out a great big piece of paper, unfold it, and that takes about half of your wall, and you're going to count all the various stops that you're going to have to do and add up all the kilometers. We don't do that anymore. We just grab our phone, type in the A to B, and Google Maps or Apple Maps give us straight away how much it's going to take us, what's the traffic. We just get used to looking at the way we map our journeys in a very different way. I predict that finding things, whether, again, they're your home assets, whether it's your dog or your cat, or it's your work assets, such as a container or a piece of machinery, will also be done just as simply as looking at Google Maps. And the convenience is just going to make all sorts of new possibility appear, because not only you won't have losing your things all the time, but you'll be able to utilize your assets in a much different way. You'll be able to start adopting and transforming your business models to maybe look at similar things to the sharing economy. If I know where my asset is, how long it's being utilized for, I can start having a bit of an Airbnb model for those assets. I can start maybe having leasing. Either I'm just leasing whatever I need when I need it, or I have assets that I can loan out to other parties when I'm not using them, suddenly making them more efficient and more viable. And a simple thing, next time you get on an airplane and you have a short connection and your luggage doesn't make it, you will not be waiting at a carousel for 2 hours, seeing if your luggage is finally going to show up, then having to go in queue at the airline desk to file a claim. Your luggage will have a tracker that will tell you anytime where it is in the world. As you're landing, you'll be getting an alert saying, I'm very sorry, your luggage didn't make it to your connection. Here's where to file a claim. Go straight to your hotel and we'll deliver your luggage tomorrow, because we know exactly where it is. Prediction number 3, food production will be predictable. Food is really important to all of us. It sustains us. Agriculture is also a major pillar of all of our economies. It turns out you can improve farming and agriculture in a massive way once you have data. It's going to be data about the soil conditions. It's going to be data about the cattle that will give you better insights and better traceability, which also is a very important element in the food chain. So if you're searching a little bit around smart farming, you'll come across the concept of a connected cow, which at first sounds a little bit funny. But if you think about it, I can track my heart rate, my location, and my activity through the watch that I'm wearing every day. So the same concept applies to cattle, having a cow that wears a heart rate monitor, a tracking location, and the body temperature, for instance, is going to give the farmer very, very clear insights on certain events that are important. For instance, when that cow might be ready for reproduction. Wine is another example where having better data at the very micro level, really at the coteau level of what is the soil condition, the chemical composition of the elements is going to allow us to avoid disease that going to spoil the grapes, and also increase the yield or the quality of the wine, which is going to be a good thing for everyone. So smart farming, or precision farming as it's now known, is one of the very fast-growing areas for IoT. And it really means that we are on track to being able to feed the 9 billion people that we think the planet is going to have in the coming years, make our food safer because we can trace all the way, and last but not least, actually make agriculture cool again. Technology is creeping into areas that we would have thought were maybe historically behind. Prediction number 4, Lean Six Sigma will be fed real time. I've worked for several large corporations, and I've been doing business improvement initiatives for many years. And those things are usually done the same old way. You go around with a piece of paper and a pen, and you measure things pretty much manually. Or you go and sort of search through some of the inadequate databases that people have, and you try and pick out trends for improvement. You find a few things, you do your Paretos, you do all of your analysis, and then you can say, okay, I've got a plan, and now I'm going to put something in place. And again, the measurements to see after the improvements are inadequate. We just don't have that sort of real-time information about how the processes are performing. That's going to change. By being able to put sensors on everything, suddenly we have the possibility to have real-time information that gives us both the insight about what might be wrong in the process, how we can fix it, and how it's actually performing better after the event. So the main reasons why the industrial IoT is growing very, very fast right now is really around the gains in productivity and the gains in maintenance, driven by a lot of the predictive models that big data can bring us. So an example is the GE wind turbines that you might see on the hills being deployed to generate electricity. They have about 20,000 sensors in each of them. And they generate 400 data points every second, which means that if you're operating those turbines, you have better information to choose when to do maintenance, what parts you need to order, and as a result, you get a better performance. You get more electricity per turbine. So the goals of industrial IoT is really around maximizing the productivity of the workers, reduce the energy consumption of the machine because we tweak them better, extend the life of those machines, and increase into automation. So we're seeing a lot of those industries adopting it and sort of creating the pattern that other industries can then benefit from. So key message, if you're doing business transformation in the room, you should really be thinking about joining the IoT train. Okay, and my final prediction is that in a few years, you will be buying and selling machine-generated data. I think we're going to see the emergence of 3 to 5 global data marketplaces that will be focusing primarily on IoT data. If you look at the last 10 years, the volume of human-generated data has just increased in a massive way. You know, we've all started producing more data by using social media, using more cloud-based infrastructure, and suddenly, you know, the amount of information that humanity is generating is grown in a massive way. Well, that's nothing compared to the amount of data that is going to be generated by things over the next few years. We were talking about 2025 in the IDAT report a few minutes ago. Well, Cisco just produced a report suggesting that in 2025, the amount of data generated by IoT will be 600 zettabytes. Now, 1 zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes. So it's just a huge, incomprehensible amount of data for any of us. To put it in perspective, they expect that the traffic that you and I produce when we go and access cloud resources from our phones will be about 275 times less. So we're talking an order of magnitude of nearly 300 to 1 between human-generated data and machine-generated data. Well, that creates opportunities. If you think about the way that the most valuable companies have emerged over the last few years. The Amazons and the Googles and the Apples, the reason they are so valuable today is because they work on data. They know what you and I are doing. Whenever I post about my holiday in Corsica, I'm sharing that with my friends, but there's a lot of other parties that are interested in that information to profile me and to get me better advertising. Well, there's a similar pattern going in IoT. You're going to see the information that is generated by, say, your car is going to be used by the manufacturer to improve the next model and the next model. But there's other parties that might be interested in that same information. If I know how this car is operating, the garage that I use for servicing will be interested in having that information so they can tell me, hey, we can fit you in next Friday. The insurance company that I'm using might be interested in having an understanding of my driving patterns or that of my children. The traffic systems will also want to get some of that information. So suddenly you can see that one piece of information, this one set of sensors, is going to generate information that is highly valuable to all sorts of parties that are going to want to trade it, buy it, sell it, etc. So I think we're going to see major issues coming up around data ownership, and how we solve this is, I think, one of the big challenges of the next few years. And I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'll be delighted to take any questions probably later on this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Charles, for those 5 predictions. And obviously, we can see so many common grounds between your both businesses, Anuko with AI and big data, and the LoRa Alliance, of course, with when it comes to IoT. I'm pretty sure that you both need to come back in 10 years from now to actually see if those predictions were true or not. Thank you very much, gentlemen.